There he is.
I'm
What's
here.
what's happening?
I'm out in the desert, 29 Palms. There's a movement out here, and I'm hanging with some friends and loving the desert, let me tell you. So I'm in my friends.
I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, it's a nice place to escape to. I'm at my friend's motel. He's redoing it, and so he gave me a little spot. Since my the spot I bought, it was like old, and we're renovating it, and right now it's just and there's no Wi-Fi. So here we are.
Well, it's good to see you. I saw you got a new motorcycle, a new baby that you posted online, huh?
I got a new baby, and so the short version of that story is my stepdad was a motor cop and had me riding at a young age. And then my real dad
Right.
was a physician, obviously working in the ER and stuff, and he would always come home and go, "Do not buy a motorcycle." So I was anti-street bike. Fast forward a number of adult years, and you learn about a bunch of friends that die on bikes. So I was like, "I'll never get a bike; they're too dangerous." And when
Right.
I moved out here, the guy had an old Triumph, which that brand wasn't even on my radar. He had it in the garage, and I was like, "Oh, now I could ride out in the desert and probably be way safer." And here we are.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Well, listen, I thank you for joining. You and I spoke a couple of weeks ago
Yep.
on the panel about the Get Lucid Challenge, which we're doing. And I saw something on your social media where you talked about I forget exactly what the words were, but you were kind of like nobody thinks that we're ever going to succeed, anything that we put our minds to, right? You always have those naysayers that say don't do it, right? And people
Yeah.
would tell you like rock to recovery, like
Yeah.
come on dude, like
Yeah.
like how is that even going to work? Don't even waste your time. So was that just a decision that you made, and how did that come about, from starting from kind of like getting to the other side of your addiction and then trying to come out with a program for addicts and then taking that leap? How did that whole journey work?
Is multifaceted, and a few different things had to take place, some of which I didn't like, but were an important part of that journey. Um, and so, hold on, I'm getting blown up really fast there. Okay, are we good? Okay, because I'm gonna
It's okay. Yeah.
keep getting texts. People are
Yeah.
trying to do stuff. Um, So left my first band. I was miserable not being an artist. Who am I? I'm getting sober now, and then I got a job that was a great job that paid me well, but I didn't feel like I was supposed to be there. And so in my head was like, what's the true what am I supposed to offer this world? Sitting behind this desk doesn't seem to be the best use of who I am. And then I anyhow ended up getting turned on to like nonprofits, and in a novelty way I'm like, oh, nonprofit, that sounds cool, knowing nothing of it. And
Right.
this girl and I tried to start a nonprofit, kind of like in iTunes, but where in the mechanism of iTunes would raise money for nonprofits. And we spent a lot of time and got nowhere, but it really started me in that realm of like, maybe I want to do something like that. So that failed. And then I got the corn gig, and all the time having the corn gig, I knew from my first music experience that like this probably is not going to last forever. And now I can be a pig and get paid for it. Yeah, this was like, you got great opportunity here. You should parlay it.
Right.
And I started looking at a lot of things, and had a lot of business ideas that didn't go anywhere. And then when the corn gig went away, I really was falling into self pity. Like, man, I lost this great gig. I mean, of course, I was happy Brian came back to the band. Uh, and it was easy for me to go, woe is me. I'm sober and I'm a broke musician like all the rest of the broke musicians. But I was like, okay, wait. God didn't put me here on this planet to suffer. I do not believe that. So that made me think, if that is true, then if this is who I am, I feel like encoded to be a musician, uh, make money, who knows, but and also I got to be sober, I'm going to be dead. So how can I use those two to help people and make a living? And that little phrase was what changed my whole life, because never before in my life did I say, how can I help people and make a
Mm,
living? And when I started meditating on that, it hit me like a bolt of lightning, as they say. When I thought about, wait a second, I was in rehab. We drew pictures, we did yoga, and all the guys just farted. Nobody cared. And I was like, wait, I want to learn yoga. Well, stop goofing around. But we didn't have music. And I remembered when I had my guitar in the treatment center, there was like 22 people there. It was, gender specific. So I'm with 22 dudes. And of course, you're like, that guy's cool. He's a weirdo. And then, when you're getting sober, you got a lot of shame, guilt, insecurities, which manifest in screw that guy. He's a lame. You keep separating yourself with your own thoughts.
yeah.
But when I would break out my guitar and play like boom, bang, boom, bang, boom, bang, everybody would be like, eh, and it broke down walls. And I was like, I got to get music into treatment, man. So as much as I'd like to say it was this altruistic thing that shot through me and I left my 6-figure job to save the world, that wasn't it. I was desperate and running out of money and like, okay, if this, and it was really asking to be guided, and here we are.
I mean, I think I believe that if there's a passion inside of you, there's nothing that's going to stop you from succeeding. It's like from the entrepreneurial side, Damon John, who I've worked with since 1996, when they had, when they were just starting, like he shut down Fubu 4 times before he got it off the ground. And then what, $8 billion later, right? Like we hear about the success, right? But the real meat on the bone is the struggles that you had to go through, and the pivots and all
Yeah,
what you had to do in order
yeah,
to kind of get through all that junk to get to the other side, because that's where the magic is as far as I'm concerned. So you go from, or I'm speaking for myself, here I was a complete degenerate of no value to the world, a taker, a taker, a taker.
yeah,
And I finally was able to, I was fortunate enough to have lost everything, right? And I had an old sponsor that used to say, if you get the gift of sobriety and you don't give it back, you are a frickin' shoplifter,
yeah.
right? And we'd be at meetings and he'd say, shoplifter, shoplifter, right? And so if you have this, like, you get the gift of like, I'd be dead if I wasn't sober, right? So to me, nothing's going to stop me from getting what's inside of me to try to get it to you, right? And so with you and your story, and I remember seeing this YouTube video on like the power of music, and there was this older brother, and he was like catatonic, and he hadn't moved in years, and then they played like an old jazz tune, and suddenly he went from like dead in the eyes to just, and he just woke up, and it
Yeah,
has like 30 million views or something. I think
yeah.
it's called The Power of Music. And
Mhm.
so what you're doing with Rock to Recovery is completely unique, um, from what I've seen, right? So
Thank you.
can you explain what you're doing with people that are coming in trying to be? And one of the things why I reached out to you originally and why we're partnering together in this whole thing is, I know you're out in the desert, so it's the Wi-Fi is in and out, is that we need to show people how freaking cool it is to be sober. All right. And so I see you showing people, how cool it is to be sober. And it's so important that we get people to understand that sobriety is adventurous and fun. Because if we think that it's just going to be church basements, diners, and coffee shops, nobody's
Yeah,
going to get sober. And
yeah.
that's one of the 3 stigmas we're fighting, right? So can you talk about I mean, there's so much that you do with Rock to Recovery, but kind of like the pillars behind Rock to Recovery?
Well, yeah, the first pillar was to help proliferate the use of music in treatment. It's kind of funny because I think you could take any layperson and go, hey, how magic is music to change the way you feel, to get people dancing? Like, think about it. It's a sound, and people literally start moving their body when they hear it. And
Yeah.
you know, or how it can change your mood or whatever. And then and like what you're saying, these cases where all Alzheimer's or catatonic people are just like transformed to new realms, you know, just through listening to music. So if you just come on the surface level, everybody would go, yeah, music's magical. Okay, then why aren't we working harder to tap into this music in a clinical sense? So that's really kind of the genesis. And why aren't we using it more? I really think that sometimes humanity, there's so many cases we're so smart because we can get to the moon. But by the way, oh, I guess women should be able to vote. Oh, okay. It's just like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like you know, there's always these blind spots we have. And then what happens in our sessions that we do is traditional music therapy is lyric analysis and listening to music. And some do drum circles and some play, but the program that I created is getting non-musicians to play music. What? How do I do that? I've never played music before. So what we explain to people is that, you know, first of all, music, when it started, piano didn't fall from the sky and a caveman just started ripping Chopin. Was the desire of a human to like create and bang and hit things. And
Yeah.
I like to say that pop music has stolen music from the average human, because the average human would love to sit on a piano and just go ding, ding, ding. But what's the next thing they say? Oh, I suck. Wait, it's not about that. Just express. Let it take you away. And what we know in a clinical sense is that when we listen to music, it lights up half our brain.
Mm.
When we play music, it engages our whole brain. It
Mm.
does to brain and body chemistry what psych meds do, what mood stabilizers do, serotonin, dopamine, etc. And when we create music as a group and sing, and we do in Rock Recovery, is we'll have a topic of discussion. It could be anything. We could be talking about suicide and losing people to suicide, and we'll connect in that common place or with wounded veterans or whatever. And then we'll write a song about it, because what is music? It's feelings put into words and music. And then when we write and play it together, you know, most of the best songs in the world are a few simple notes put together. But what happens is, like you said, you know, catatonic patient's a great example. This person's shut off. You talk, you say everything. You could show a screen, nothing happens, and you get some music in, and it goes right to their soul and breaks them open. Well, that's what happens in our groups. We work with, let's say, a wounded veteran who's addicted, you know, to painkillers or whatever, or just a heroin junkie or your typical alcoholic. And we have this, we're born with this soul of beautiful, pure energy and love, and we're a baby, and then things happen. We get hurt, we get distrustful. It's life, it's what happens.
Yeah.
Add some traumas, big ones, little ones, and we start getting this crusty layer. And by the time we come into treatment, whether it's for mental health or addiction or anything, we like you said, we believe life can't be good anymore, and we don't believe that childlike spirit exists anymore. But when we get people playing in their body, out of their thoughts of catastrophe that newcomers are in, and we crack through that crust of hurt and damage, and we show them that little childlike, playful spirit is still there.
Yeah.
And when they see it, I've seen it before, you know, they come in and, you know, hey, but then they're like, you see their eyes like, oh my God, I can feel good again. And I didn't need a drug. And so I often say to people, like, tell me a psych med that does that. Tell me a psych med that takes a mother walking into session crying over children that have OD'd, who leaves smiling, hopeful, and euphoric in an hour. There isn't a psych med that does that. Now, I'm not saying psych don't have their place. They for sure do, but it just shows you there's a magical power of music that is we're just starting to tap into. And then to
Well,
what you're
you know what my psych med is. I'll be at my desk and I'll say, hey, SIRI. I can't say it right now because she'll listen, and I'll say, play MJ Happy music, right? And then
yeah,
I'm just lit up. Like, that's my 8 ball, right?
yeah, yeah,
Is SIRI, right?
yeah,
That's what lights me up to get me when I'm jammed up and I've been working 18 hours and I can't even, like, say, play me my playlist, and then just lights me up.
You
Just
feel
like,
good. You
oh
feel
my
good.
God. Oh my
You know,
God.
right?
There's nothing like it. There's nothing
It's in
like it.
right. It's getting into your body, and I think a lot of these kind of, if you will, are so important because mental health, addiction. It's in our head. The pain is in our head. We might be sitting there. We're not being beaten up by some physical assailant. We're just in hell in our mind. And when we can get into the body and get creative in a connected exercise, it's really powerful. And
And
so,
you're doing some amazing things with, you were talking about veterans with PTSD and stuff
yeah,
like that. I mean, that work is just, that's so, I have friends that have been, had to go and do a couple of tours and then are in the program, and they are so jammed up.
yeah,
And you're doing some unbelievable work with people with TBI and, traumatic brain injuries and stuff like that. And that kind of all expands into the umbrella of Rock to Recovery, right?
yes. So when we were working, we started an addiction. We started our nonprofit work, and it's like, wow, wonder if we could work with veterans. And thankfully, through my corn touring days, it's funny how the universe works. I had met a gal who's real tight with Jonathan Davis because he used to visit Air Force bases, and he used to talk about it from the stage, seeing guys with, servicemen and women with body parts blown off and trying to go visit
Yeah.
them and bring them support. But through that contact, I got connected with some people at the Air Force that were just creating this program, Mark Hollis and Tony Yasso. And right when they were creating it, they had done like one, and it was kind of like activated sports, wheelchair basketball, and they just wanted to start adding some ancillary programs. And that's right when I called. So we developed that into having an actual contract with the Department of Defense, getting flown around the world, ultimately to Germany, to work with veterans and now even their children.
It's
And
unbelievable.
it's unbelievable. If anybody who sees this or hears this, it's not only unbelievable we get to do that, but if you can imagine, if you're suffering, that your life can turn into this too, where I'm in 29 Palms. There's a base right there. I'm at Starbucks, and I get to talk to servicemen and tell them how honored I am to get to work with them. And I was talking to my staff on our little text feed today. Yeah, I played to 80,000 people with one of the biggest rock bands in the world. I
Yeah.
rarely would tell anybody that story, as cool as I am grateful and all, it's great. But I'm most proud of getting to work with veterans on that level. There's nothing cooler I've ever gotten to do in my life.
Yeah. And people who may not be in recovery, there's a saying, those amongst us, no explanation is necessary. Those not amongst us, no explanation is possible. Uh, People like Wes and I, like the way that we stay sober is, to give away what we've been given
Right.
and to be able to be of service to the other people. That is the only way that Wes and I can stay sober. I'll speak for myself, but I'm guessing you feel the same way, that service keeps you sober.
It's my
And it's
duty.
just how we, and again, going back to, if you get the gift of sobriety, you don't, give it back, you're a freaking shoplifter.
I love that.
That has stayed with me for like every day of my life. So we're doing, you and I we're doing this Get Lucid challenge, which talks about 3 stigmas of addiction, which prevents people from getting help. Number one is, I don't have willpower. Like, how many times, like I used to say, why can't I just have 4 or 5 drinks? What is the matter with me, right? And why can't I just do one line, right? Like, and until I were to until I realized that it has absolutely nothing to do with me. It's genetic, right? And so once I realized it had nothing to do with me, I was like, oh my God, I thought there was something the matter with me. And the fact that, like, I am so proud to be an addict and an alcoholic. You know why? Because it's treatable, right? It's a treatable disease, and we're guaranteed that we could go in remission on a daily basis, so long as we treat it on a daily basis. So it's like people say, why do you say I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict? And I'm like, it's the same way that I need to know if I have cancer or if I have diabetes. Like, I need to know if I have diabetes because then I need to control my sugar and maybe I
Yeah.
need to pop some insulin, right?
Yeah.
So when I qualify, I talk about my friend. He had a fatal illness and it was called inoperable brain cancer, right? And he would do anything to get better. And he would talk to me and say, MJ, I do anything to get better. And I tell people, like, listen, like if we went to the terminal cancer ward and said, hey, listen, I have this thing that could put you in remission every day, so long as you practice these simple steps. What percent of those people do you think would do it? I would say 100%.
Yep.
Right? So so that stigma number one, people thinking there's something the matter with me, once they understand that the American Medical Association, American Psychiatric Association, I mean, the jury's out. It's a disease and a treatable disease, and it's not your fault. Then you can be like, oh, wow, that's great. And what do I need to do to help me along this journey to get me to stay sober one day at a time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the stigma, just to give the three stigmas, stigma number one is that lack of willpower. Why can't I just drink moderately or drug moderately? Number two is shame. Like it's something that I should be embarrassed about, right? Which both the addict feels, and also sadly, there's been all these studies when people ask people, hey, would you support giving insurance to people with mental illness? They're like, absolutely, 100%. They're like, what about people with addiction? They're like, oh, no. They're like, no, it's one and the same, right?
Right.
And then the third is that sobriety is going to be the end of fun, right? And
Yeah.
so, and these are things that prevented me from getting sober. And all my friends that are now in comas and caskets all dealt with those stigmas. And what you and I are trying to do, as well as the Heron Project, right, is really fight these stigmas to get people to understand, A, it's not your freaking fault, right? And it's treatable, and there's no shame. It's to be celebrated, and it's freaking fun. Like
Yeah.
and it's so important because I came from the urban hip hop culture, and I was like, coffee shops, diners, bowling alleys, and church basements, I'm out, right? Where's my 8-ball? And that kept me, ruining towns and villages for an extra 12, 13 years. So I think, so if we talk about the stigmas, if we talk about, like, did you go through a period where you were like, man, like, why can't I just shut it down? Like, why can't I just shut it?
I think, they talk about that. I'm a 12 stepper, and they talk about that in the literature. I was trying to prove every imaginable way that I could control and enjoy my drinking. And I pursued that through the gates of insanity, right? And almost killing myself. And so when I crashed and burned and got into a rehab, and it explained the powerlessness. So you're talking about willpower, and it was taught to me in the concept of I'm powerless over the first drink, because there's a million versions of addiction. Like I thought it was mostly the drugs, but then when I realized, oh, that's why when I drink a Corona, it set me off to the dealer's house, even though I don't like cocaine. It's the allergy. I have an allergy, so I'm powerless against the first drink. And then when I take the first drink, I can't have any willpower because it produces the phenomenon of craving where I want more, more, more. Now, in my using days, could I go, wait, one day I drank 2 beers and went to the gym? Sure. There's isolated incidents, but most of the time when I pick up, I cannot predict with any accuracy what's going to happen as far as an outcome. So, I struggled to prove that on my own. By the time I got into rehab, it was in the literature, and I was like, oh my gosh, these people nailed it. And then I was open to it, to the solution, because I heard myself in the problem.
Yeah, and the thing that when I look back on it, I did and the 12 steps saved my life, right? So I'm with you on that. Is I thought that the 12-step programs were a cult, and I did like the a la carte version. I'd say I'll do step 1 and 2 and maybe 3, definitely not 4 and 5, and and I'm not going to get too much into the 12-step stuff, but my point is that if you have a problem, or if people think are part of, say, the sober curious, there's a group called the sober curious, which are people right now who they don't know whether or not they have a problem. And during COVID now, alcohol deliveries are up 300 to 500%. People that were drinking 2 glasses of wine or drinking 2 bottles of wine and wondering like what happened. And it gives you this forum to ask questions, right? And I think that the world tells us, like, show your ego, right? And like vulnerability, don't ever do that. And you and I learned that in vulnerability, there's strength, right? That's where our power comes from. And saying the 3 words that no addict wants to say, I need help, right? Which allows them to start their journey of recovery. And so, if I were to give advice to anyone, and I kind of pose this to you, is I would, kind of express to them how unbelievably powerful you are in your vulnerability, and to express and say the words, I need help, not only just for you to get help, but for the other person that's listening that really wants to say, I need help too, but doesn't want to be the first one, right? And so then they hold shit to themselves, and then nobody gets help. Yeah. So the moment that I said, I need help, somebody else said, oh my God, MJ said that, I need help too. And then somebody else. And so you end up helping people and helping yourself. And so we need to show people the incredible power that you have inside of you to show, your vulnerability, and the fact that we all come in knowing the same thing about anything, nothing, right? So if we're an addict and we come in, I'm thinking, I know it's MJ's program, so I know exactly what it takes to be sober, right? How did that work out for me? As my friend used to say, no, I heard you went out. I'm like, yeah. And he said, how did that work out for you? And I had a resentment against him for years, right? But for people who are watching, like, these stigmas, and like, what advice would you give people that feel like maybe they're jammed up and they don't know what to do, and they're like feeling embarrassed and all these kind of stigmas? Like, what advice could you give them? Because you used to wreck towns and villages, I'm guessing too, just like me. I'm not a special snowflake, right?
Villages, yeah, a few planets probably.
Exactly. So if people can see 2 complete freaking degenerates like you and me come and now be of service to other people, and that's why I created the Loosid platform. Then and like when I would go to prisons to speak, or down in dirty detoxes, they'd say, yeah, but look at you and look at me. And then I would like show them, I have my last picture from the intensive care unit saved, and I'd show them the picture, and they'd be like, ah, right? They're like, you are one of us, right? Like, what kind of advice would you give to people that feel like that it's got to be weakness if I go in and ask for help?
Yeah, well, our ego is not our amigo. That's what we say a lot in California. But unfortunately, sadly, most people won't ask for help until they're beaten into a pulp. Mm-hmm. So, if somebody's listening to this conversation and afraid to ask for help, that means they're already starting to tiptoe, though, in going, maybe do I need help? And it's kind of important to understand that people that don't have a problem of some sort probably aren't sneaking around looking for answers, and I think it's important for people to continually hear the message, and that's why it's important we do this. You never know when somebody's going to pick it up and just hear the couple words they need to hear to make them willing to try it. But we have to have people know that they're not too sick. A lot of people think, well, if you knew what my life was like, it's like, no, don't even try that. Because now we know there's been people that had it way better than you and way worse than you, and they've recovered. There's people have been through just what you've been through. And the other part is, yes, you're good enough and you deserve it, and it is possible for you. And then the other thing that I like to talk about is when you talk about this fun thing, is, you know, if you're looking around for answers that you might have a problem, then you're probably starting to accumulate evidence of things that you don't like in your life.
Right.
And so when we're saying, hey, I won't have fun. So for my life, as my cars were repoed, I was homeless. People didn't want to hear a word I had to say anymore. I looked like hell. I was just a wreck when I went out. And I'm like, life's not going to be fun anymore. It's like, dude, look at your life now. And so what I try to do is get people excited about and tell them, like, when you're saying, like, when people say, well, look at you, maybe they look at me and go, hey, he doesn't look like he has a problem. No. I was 123 pounds with my teeth cracking out of my head, not eating. I was a full-blown meth addict. The thing was, I wasn't letting go of a fun life. I was letting go of a sick life. And in getting away from the drugs and the alcohol, what I was really able to do is get down to the real reasons why I was drinking and using. So if you're out there curious, if you wonder if you have a problem, the question is really, are you willing to be open to digging a little deeper and seeing what keeps driving you back to drinking and using, even though you feel like it's not really working for you? Because if you thought it was working for you, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be looking for answers. And that sounds scary, I get, but really the reality here is what we're doing is we're letting go of this deadly weight that's sinking us in the deadly sea of addiction or whatever, mental health, and we're becoming the ultimate versions of ourselves. So, you know, do you want to become the ultimate version of yourself? You know, and in a lot of the literature says if you're not sure if you have a problem, unfortunately, probably the best thing for you to do is go get loaded some more until you know you have a problem, you know, and try to start and stop when you want. Try to control your drinking. Try to, and then if you find out you can't, and then maybe the certainty of knowing, like, no, I cannot control this as well as I'd like to. I need some help. That might push you into being a little more willing to ask for help. But, so I'll end with this, is for guys like MJ and myself and anybody in recovery, it helps us to help other people. The reason I'm on here doing this, I could be riding my motorcycle in the desert right now, is because,
Nice
like you said,
yeah.
it's my job to carry the message that was given to me so others can recover too.
Yeah, and to wrap it up, one of the things that I heard that disturbed me early in recovery, I've been sober since March 21st, 2012, is that when you put down the drink or the drug, life doesn't get better, life gets worse. And I was like, holy fuck, what? And then the other side of the comma is, if you don't put a spiritual program in place, right? Because you need to replace those spirits with spirituality. And it's not just the program, it's the work that you're doing with music and all this amazing stuff that people can see once they get to the other side. Like, you got to know that there's hope on the other side. And that's what Rock to Recovery is doing. That's what Heron Project is doing, right? And because if not, then like, why are we getting sober? And so that's why it's so important for people to see you driving your motorcycle and having fun and talking about, some people were talking about, we talk about the shame because we're perceived as weak. I was reading some of the comments. Like, this is the shit that people hear that prevents people. And then what happens is you dress up in a black suit and you go to their funeral. And that's sadly what happens. And so the whole kind of point of what we're doing here is to for anybody that is jammed up and not doesn't know really what to do, start with asking questions. Start reaching out and say those 3 words that nobody wants to say: I need help. How do people? So there's the Get Lucid Challenge, right? Which is on Loosid App. Hashtag Get Lucid Challenge on social media. You and I are gonna challenge a shitload of people, so we can try to spread this word. And Heron Project is doing the same thing. And Rock to Recovery, it's rocktorecovery.org.
Well, .com gets you there too. .com will get you to the same domain. Yeah, Rock to Recovery 2 is spelt out TO. And you said something that I think is interesting. I just like to add on a little bit. You talked about, like, when somebody told you when you quit drinking, it gets worse. So there's something I heard a guy shares, like if you have a problem with drinking or drugs, you'll quit and your problem will go away. If you're an alcoholic or truly an addict, when you quit, you'll be stuck with the problem, which is you. So I drank self-medicating. So that's another good tester for people at home who are sober curious. If you hate how you feel when you're sober, you really dislike it, and that's making you pick up again, that shows that there's more work to be done. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of like what we're doing with Rock to Recovery. We have a nonprofit, and the idea was to have rock stars come out and share their story. We had Corey Taylor, who just put out a solo album, but he's from Not and Stone Sour. We had Moby. We had Katie Seagal from Married with Children and Sons of Anarchy. Famous, amazing humans that Mike Ness from Social Distortion tell their story of how bad their life was before their recovery, during their addiction, and how getting sober and finding recovery was what led them to the most amazing life ever. And then we had performances from, Stone Temple Pilots guys, Billy Idol guys, all sorts of different, Madonna's guitar player, Monty Pittman, all sorts of famous, amazing people. Basically we made the concert totally sober. So it sells out every year at about 1,300 people.
Wow.
And we have about half the audience comes from local treatment centers in LA, and so if you imagine you're a guy, okay, I'll go to a rehab. What am I doing here? Rehab, this is weird. And then they go, hey, we got an outing. We're going to go to Rock to Recovery. They get in a van and they drive them to a concert where, Mike Ness is going, hey, if I didn't stop shooting dope, there would have been a social distortion.
Right.
And they're like, whoa. I can party with A-level rock stars at a sober event. My life is not over. And, we do this concert every year, and we're trying to grow this model. But, the more like what you're doing with Loosid, the more we can have these elements and entities and events out there showing that life is the most fun sober, then we're doing really good. And then the other side, too, is when you're talking about people getting shamed for like, oh, you just need to show willpower. Well, that's ignorance on the other side.
Yeah.
So what I love about the Rock to Recovery event is a lot of people come who aren't in recovery too.
Right.
And they get to hear it from both angles. So it's also our job, MJ, to continue to teach people out there. I had a rule when I first got sober is I didn't try to explain my addiction to anybody because they're not going to get it. Wait. So if you drink one beer, it sets off an allergy where you can't whatever. Like, I don't even try that. But guys like you and I that are in recovery, and we can get out there and just keep the stigma so people understand it is a disease, it is treatable, but there is a powerless element for addicts where we pick up even though we don't want to.
Yeah, and I have to say every day to friends, and when they say, can you believe this person thought that, you're just like what you're saying, I say, listen, you have to keep saying what other people think about me, and it's none of my spiritual business. Right? Yeah. I mean, because they're going to say, like, I used to have a friend, he used to call me Dice Man in college because I cursed so much. I was coming from New York, everything out of my mouth was a curse word. So my friend was like, Dice, you got to just shut it down after 5 drinks, Dice. The difference between me and you, Dice, is that I have willpower and that you don't, right?
He was right.
And so for years, I thought that was my problem, lack of willpower, right?
Yeah.
And so we go and we listen to people, then it prevents us from getting the help that we need, unless it's people that are kind of that share that common bond. So I think it's so important, like you said, that if you're getting other people telling you what to do, but those people are not in a recovery program, you have to be very careful about what you listen to, because it kept me out for over a decade. These people just telling me that I should just feel frickin' embarrassed about what I was, not realizing that I had no control. Like you said, a phenomenon of craving, right? That mental obsession that triggers it. So, well, listen, Rock to Recovery, you guys are doing unbelievable things at Rock to Recovery.
You too, man.
Yeah, brother. And jump on that bike, and then we will we will, over the next month or so, all of the proceeds are going to Rock to Recovery and Heron Project. And you can go right to Rock to Recovery's site and you can see the unbelievable things that Rock to Recovery and Heron Project are doing. And then you'll see it on our website, how much we give and all of that. And so that way we can give you more and more resources so you can keep doing bigger and better things.
That's amazing. And we need oops, I did something to my screen. Get out of here. Oh God, I've screwed up. There we go. And we need your help now more than ever because we can't do our yearly concert, which funds our nonprofit. So we really thank you, MJ, for finding us and supporting us, and to the Heron Project as a partner. Totally amazing. I wanted to, before I let you sign off, I wanted to, are you ready? We're going to do a little screenshot so I can post it here. Ready? I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I can post it. Yeah, thanks for all the...
let's hold up the three. Let's hold up the three.
Oh, let's do the three, yeah.
Let's do the three. What the fuck?
Got it. Yeah, thanks for the incredible work you're doing out there. And people, hopefully, if they know that they're never alone, and there's always people willing to help. And I think last thing, based on what you're saying, is it's funny how if somebody was starting a company, I want to be the next Jeff Bezos, and you're like, oh, you want to talk to other millionaires who are successful entrepreneurs? Yeah, I do. I'm struggling with addiction. I really need help. Oh, you want to talk to other addicts? Oh, I don't know, man. I'm cool. It's like, why do it alone? That's the thing. Why do it alone? We're here. We'd love to talk to you.
Yes, 100%. Well, listen, I love you, brother, and keep doing what you're doing. All right. And then, and everybody, if you have the financial wherewithal, please donate. Go to rocktorecovery.com, go to Heron Project, see the amazing things that they're doing. If you have the financial ability to do so that way they can continue to do the amazing work that they're doing. Yeah. And that's it. That's a wrap.
That's it. That's a
wrap. All
wrap.
right. Thank you so much. All right. Have a great one.
Thanks.
All
You too. Bye.